Bobby Andrew, and I was born here in this village just about 70 years ago. To start off with, we have 33 original tribal villages in the region. And there's the Yupik people, the Aleut, the Alutiiq, and then there's the Athabascans on the east side of the Nushagak River. And traditionally, each of those villages relied on the renewable resources that were provided by the water, land, and air.
My name is Pedla Noden. I've been a commercial fisherman pretty much my whole life, except when I went to school. Been subsistencing all my life. 26 years old, I'm Yupik and Inupiaq. And I've lived here in Dillingham all my life. Sitting at a subsistence net, and it's about 100 feet out. It's tied to a tree here. Got 2 anchors driven at the far end, pounded down in and tied the cork line down to it. So when the tide comes in, it's got about 20 feet of slack, so the corks can go up about 20 feet with the water level. And I'm gonna come back tomorrow around this time and see if there's any fish in there. Some good fish to eat, smoke, prepare for our families and loved ones. Different people taught me. I've helped Bill Jackson set out his net and pound his stakes in. Been kind of doing it my whole life. People around me have been doing it my whole life, so it's just sort of inherent.
See this mud flat? Kings like to go in the shallows. So when they turn this way and the tide's coming, he gets first crack. Hey, I told him in the mud flats, that's where they always get the most. I learned that from my dad before he went. And that's how I pass it on to my kids. And I hope he passes it on to his kids like me.
What does it mean to live off the land in the United States today? How is life different when where you live is not connected to the nation's road system? How does it feel when your ancestors have been subsisting off the same land for thousands of years, and then that land is threatened?
We flew to Bristol Bay in southwest Alaska to open a space for tribal elders and youth to tell us about their way of life. The Bristol Bay region is about the size of the state of Ohio, but its largest town, Dillingham, has just over 2,300 residents. Most people live in tribal villages of about 200, where they count on their boats, float planes, and snowmobiles to get around. There are no big box stores here. Families depend on the region's salmon for 55% of their subsistence diet.
Alaska Native cultures, passed down for thousands of years, help each new generation build an intimate understanding of the land they love.
Parents and tribal elders pass on their traditional ecological knowledge, teaching each animal's life cycle, migration patterns, and how to respectfully harvest and preserve them to feed their communities through the long Alaskan winters.
Fish swam to the net, and then went down to the beach, picked them, put them in the truck, and we're going to give them away. Then tomorrow the fish will come again, and let's go down there and pick them and bring them back.
Yeah, you can eat the whole thing.
Nice.
Eat the whole thing.
Okay, I
read one.
These taste good. I want this.
They taste good.
I think they taste good. Nice.
Culture Camp really passes on that tradition that many families for generations have relied on, and that is going from grandma to grandpa to the grandchildren, passing on that knowledge of going down to the beach, picking that net, going around the table, the splitting table, and making sure we talk about what types of fish we have and when we have them, and filling up that smokehouse. Do you guys remember how we tell our fish apart? What's on a king salmon skin?
The like black spots.
It has black spots on it. I am the executive director of Nunavut-Ilixtai, and I am the third chief of Chilliwack Tribal Council, which this is part of Culture Camp. I'm president of the Dillingham City School Board. So I'm a very involved parent in my community.
It's time to go.
Because it's time to go, so let's go out and get some more big wood.
Mommy, I'll put the little chunks I see on it.
Okay, so you're gonna light your smokehouse with your grandma?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you eat those fish eggs yesterday?
Yep.
You did? All of them?
Oh, it's heavy. Where's the heart?
You got them all, Philip. Right here. Oh, look at that. You get another one. You got 3 of them now.
You got a heart?
4 heads.
We believe that fish need to be there for generations. They come back every year. They provide jobs. They provide a way of life that people in rural Alaska can live off of. We want even President Obama to say, yeah, Bristol Bay is a treasure and it's worth protecting, and that means no large-scale development like mining in Bristol Bay. You guys are gonna cut fish today, and then, all right, now if you're taking fish home, how many bags do we have to take home?
I want to take fish home. Me too. I want to take fish home. Me too.
Everybody has a bag?
I do.
Tribal elders say families need at least 1,500 pounds of salmon to get through the winter.
Families aim to harvest at least 1 caribou or moose every fall, as well as hunting for ducks and geese and canning over 100 pounds of wild berries.
Mining company, Anglo-American, and Canadian mining company, Northern Dynasty, have been lobbying to get permission to build a mine here. They want to build North America's largest open-pit mine, among the headwaters of Bristol Bay's salmon spawning streams. They call it the Pebble Mine, and if it's permitted, it will be the largest gold mine in the world.
Okay, take out all that blood inside there. Scrape it out with your hands. Oh man, good job.
I remember when I was a little girl, I first started cutting fish, and I learned how to split my first fish. Everyone was so excited, and down the beach by my grandparents, and there was 2 boatloads of fish, and everyone was just having a good time. And that's what brings our family together. That's what brings everyone together, is the fish. If there was no fish, I think that our culture would just completely die. It's not us that just eats the fish, it's the animals, and the land uses it too.
Taking our salmon away would be like what happened to the lower 48 Indians when they took the buffalo away. You know, they just couldn't survive without that buffalo. We can't survive without our fish here.
For me to go out and to talk to all of the people in Dillingham about their subsistence usage is an eye-opener, really. I mean, I've known it all my life, but I just really didn't think about it. Just how important subsistence usage is. I mean, average people that I interviewed say they use more than 50% of their diet is subsistence. 50% of the diet is consisting of wild game, fish, vegetation.
We use our land for berry picking, fishing, moose hunting.
I'm Chugiyung Tribal Chief. We have 2,600 members here in Dillingham, and we're the largest tribe in Bristol Bay. And we're the highest consumers of fish per capita anywhere in the United States.
Down on the beach, the folks that have their nets immediately near mine, if there's a storm, the storm will bring in king salmon, and if there's a storm and people are tending their nets and taking fish out of them, it's quite commonplace to share the work, help somebody who may not have a line puller to get their net out of the water and get it back in again. And if somebody winds up with a log in their net, a tree in their net, and has to get it out, people will chip in to help get it out of there and drag the tree up above the tide line. but it goes deeper. The people that have their nets on the beach near ours, we all kind of go to the same potlucks. We share recipes and one of the guys near where I fish has been my hunting partner many years, is not as well. So family relationships form, and I guess there was a recognition of that the guy that I worked for when I first came out here kind of asked his sons to move their nets just a little bit so that I had a place to set mine. And as I said, I've been setting my net there for more than 20 years. My name is Terry Hefferly, and I'm talking to you from Dillingham, Alaska. You got it?
So we basically live a seasonal lifestyle. In the wintertime, when it turns winter, we're dependent on the rabbit, the ptarmigan, and the freshwater fish. We really need all of that to supplement our income fishing so that we can live year round. That's a real important lifestyle for us, is to continue to eat.
People here go fishing and hunting a lot more than they go shopping. Affordable options at the grocery store are limited.
Food at the store here costs up to 4 times as much as food in most American grocery stores.
That's because everything that's for sale in the store here has to be shipped in on barges or flown in. Nothing can be brought in by truck.
The feeling about Pebble Mine in Dillingham is pretty strong. Most everyone opposes it. I only know a couple of people that are for it. Everyone knows that it will destroy our land and there won't be anything, because without fish we don't have anything to...
I've been commercial fishing since 1965 when I first went on my dad's fishing boat. A lot of these operations are from are like family businesses. Like on his boat, he fishes with his brother, and he's got his nephew on there, and other family members. So it's like a family operation. Way of life. Way of life. Yep, that's our livelihood. Like my boat, same thing. My son, my nephew, they fish with me.
It is the world's largest sockeye salmon producing area in the whole world. Russia, any of the other countries that have salmon returning to them, cannot equal what Bristol Bay produces at any given year.
91% of the salmon in the U.S. come from Alaska, and 51% of that comes from Bristol Bay.
This is the salmon capital of the world, right here, Bristol Bay, Alaska.
I think it's important to remember that subsistence is number one for all Alaskans over commercial and sport.
So in Alaska, the subsistence salmon use has the highest priority. That means before subsistence salmon can be restricted, everything else has to be shut down. So sport fishing would be closed completely, commercial fishing would be closed before you could have any kind of restriction to subsistence salmon, because that has the highest priority of use.
Try to do about 30 kings, but we never get 30 kings this year. Maybe 40 reds.
More reds still come in, and like my grandpa in there will put up probably 60, 50, 60 of them. So I mean, the entire family's putting up a lot. So I mean, you know, if we run out, we just get it from someone else.
Red?
Red, yeah.
And kings are really, they're what people like to do the first, you know, and we don't normally make strips and stuff out of red, but we have been, I know I'm done, I got it already. Just eating fish where they do the fillet like that, And then it's just one big strip and they slice it like this instead of doing the strips. And then it's just eaten fish instead of called strips. In the smokehouse, let it dry for a couple of days to get a glaze, and then you smoke it with cottonwood and drywood. We really wanted more kings, but we're happy with what we get. The last couple of years we did 3 smokehouses full like this.
We have this once a week native feast kind of Sunday. All fish, moose, seal oil, seal, beluga,
herring,
No, you guys are here.
beavers.
Tomorrow Father's Day, they're gonna cook up a big meal, so you guys are more than welcome to come.
Everybody comes out, all the kids, all the family, friends, kids. We just all come out, set the net, get as much fish as we can for the winter, go home and put them up. All taught by our grandparents, parents.
With the majority of people in the region relying on the salmon as well as the big game, they survive off the land. But number one that's important to the people in the region is the family. Making sure there's going to be something left behind for them.
It's usually a family activity. It then becomes, for Alaska Native people, because family means culture, and our culture is tied to our land, then it becomes really important.
For many of the people, the impact will be immense, basically because for over 1,000 years we've survived off the land, the water, and the air. And if the pebble mine was to be permitted, we'd lose the healthier food resources that we currently collect from the land and the water. And without those, some of our elders wouldn't be able to survive, as well as I wouldn't be able to survive, basically, because that's my primary diet.
You know, the pebble mine is just not the answer for Bristol Bay. It's really how do we generate more and more economic development out of this fishing industry and this renewable resource that has been coming back for thousands of years and feeding families, and basically for over 100 years has been coming back as a commercial fishery that's sustained people, you know, across the United States.
There's the pre-season, right? All of this, the necessary getting all of the parts to your boat, making it functional. But as soon as your boat is floating, it takes on a whole different feel, doesn't it, Eddie?
Yeah, it does.
It's a whole different feel because you're down lower, first of all, and then there's the motion of the water. When the boat goes by, your boat, reacts to it. You get the waves and stuff. You get places because of the current, and you take instead of time of day, it's stage of tide.
I lived up here for 10 years. Actually, not in Dillingham. I was in Dillingham for 3.5. I was upriver in a village called Equat for 3 years, and over in Todiak for 2. My wife and I were teachers up here.
Yeah, just a couple more holes. As you can see, though, there are a couple more holes. This one really shouldn't have been mended, but we decided to do it. It'd be easier just to hang a new one. But recycle, reuse.
I didn't even make any money my first few years, but it's just so much fun. I've been fortunate enough to be on some really good boats and have some pretty amazing adventures.
I lived in Dillingham, Alaska for about 12, 14 years, and I met a woman up in Koliganek, and I married her, and I've been up there for about 22, 23 years. And I do fishing, and basically that's all I do is I can't wait till it's fishing season, and here we are waiting for fishing to begin, but we're just sitting here waiting, and I'm anxious to go fish.
Everybody's been working very hard to get ready, and we're having set net openings in Igushik tomorrow and the next couple days, so people are starting to get going.
It's just a madhouse. It's just so competitive, and people are just going after the fish. And sometimes you just cannot stop the fish, and they keep on coming, but you only have a few hours to make your day.
You got 20 minutes. You start pulling now? No, just start hauling. Let's haul.
And there's only a month to make your season. So every day counts, and you just try to put in as much effort as you can to last the season. No matter how tired you get, you just work at it.
Bristol Bay is home to the largest remaining wild salmon runs in the world. Over 40 million wild salmon returned to its rivers to spawn in 2010.
Some years, Bristol Bay's commercial fishing fleet catches over 30 million wild salmon. But they stop when they've caught their limit, so that there will be plenty of salmon returning in years to come.
This sustainable industry accounts for over 75% of local jobs in Dillingham.
When salmon migrate from their freshwater spawning beds to the open ocean, they rely on their sense of smell to create an olfactory map. Returning to spawn years later, they must follow their noses back to the same creek where they were born. Swimming up through Bristol Bay's two major river systems, the Nushagak and the Kvichak, millions of salmon pass through Lake Iliamna, Alaska's largest lake, and the biggest incubator of wild salmon in the world, before continuing on to spawn in the region's hundreds of smaller rivers and creeks every year.
The cabin where I was born is still standing, or partially standing, a part of it anyway. We used to live here from the early 1900s to 1954. That's where we lived. We'll be going by Department of Fish and Game's counting tower, sonar. Are there lots of fish?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Pretty cold. Looks like the run's gonna be a little later.
Uh-huh. So
We have counting towers or sonar station on the Nushagak River where we count fish, and we have years of data that we have an idea of where we should be versus where we are.
Close to the peak of the season, you could just see them. And then as time goes along, they turn red. And you can just see them, they're really bright red.
The people up in Nushagak, the first thing that they noticed, they were the first ones to notice a change in the fish up there. They noticed that the redfish that they go up and get after the fish swim up the river and they spawn, they turn bright red, and they're real tasty delicacy to the Alaska Native people. First thing they noticed was that there was no more redfish, a decline in redfish where there always was redfish, and so they reported that, and of course we found out that Northern Dynasty was using some sort of mud additive or something to their drilling operation that was not supposed to be used around streams, period. And here they were using it. And then the other thing that happened was that we noticed was the caribou migration pattern change.
Right where the Pebble mine site is, it used to be the calving area. And what's happened now is with all the noise, the activity in the area there, it has dislocated some of the caribou that go through there.
So you never spook or scare or shoot the first bunch that comes through. They started drilling in that one particular area. The caribou came and they spooked off, and they instead of going straight like they normally do and come down into the Nushagak area, they diverted and went right
So the people from Non-Dalton as well as Iliamna and New Halen have to go at least 300 miles away from their village, round trip, in order to get the caribou that they have.
The Pebble Partnership has applied for the rights to use 100% of the water from the Cockatoolie River into Larrick Creek, where Bristol Bay salmon return to spawn every year. 17 miles upstream from Lake Iliamna is where they propose to build their mine.
The pit of the Pebble Mine is projected to be 3 miles long, 2.5 miles wide, and 1/4 of a mile deep, blasted out with 58,000 one-ton explosions each year.
We've partnered with biologists as well as geologists in order to get an idea of what those potential impacts may be on the environment, not the water, the air, as well as what impacts it's going to have on the renewable resources that we rely on for survival.
So this Pebble Mine, right now, as proposed, is supposed to be one of the world's largest mines. The Pebble Mine is just one mine, one prospector up in that area. All around Pebble, people have staked out land, and it's a huge area. So if Pebble gets permitted and is allowed to process, that's going to invite these other landholders as well.
Pebble it's in a sulfite ore body, so they're not Northern Dynasty or Anglo-American or the Pebble Partnership. They're not going after the sulfur. They're going after the copper and the gold and the molybdenum. And what they're leaving behind is sulfur.
I took a tour with the Northern Dynasty down on their mines in Canada. I also went and toured mines in Nevada and found out that the sulfite soil that they're going to be digging in was one of the worst kinds of open pit mines that you could have.
Well, because Bristol Bay has an abundance of water and we have an abundance of air, you mix sulfur with air and water and you get sulfuric acid from your general chemistry class. So anytime you expose that rock or that ore, which is a pit, to water and air, you're always going to have that acid mine generated from the pit.
The fact that it's a low-grade prospect, which means that they've got to mill a ton of ore to get 20 pounds of copper and gold and molybdenum and the other stuff. So there's an incredible amount of waste, and of course this waste is sulfide minerals.
Over 1,000 pounds of waste would be produced for each person on Earth during the lifetime of the Pebble Mine.
One of the biggest parts of Pebble Mine would be an artificial lake or tailings pond, used to store all the mine's waste, including heavy metals. The Pebble Partnership's plans depend on over 9 miles of earthen dams to contain the tailings pond.
What good is a tailings dam going to do to hold all of these toxic tailings in the face of a 7-point or an 8-point or an 8.5 seismic event?
The tailings pond, even though it's lined, at some point in time, that lining doesn't last forever and it will break and it'll cause leakage into the groundwater. And we see, our own experts tell us we're going to have some acid mine drainage.
Yeah, their own geologists told me that, these earthen dams that they build, it's not a matter of if they leak, it's a matter of when they leak.
The tundra is spongy. It's like a sponge. There are even down below clay layers and below into bedrock. There are places where water moves from one drainage to another.
And all the research indicates that basically what they have up there, where their proposed mine, is a highland wetland area, and there's massive amount of water up there.
Water is a source of life. Without clean water, we wouldn't be able to survive. We drink off this lake, and if there was ever any contaminants in this lake, I think we'd find out right away if there was a loss of life within the community.
Oh no, this dam will last forever. For the next 100 billion years, it'll last. Yeah, good luck with that. And they're going to put it in the most geologically active place in Alaska.
He started talking about that mine. They said it was a volcano, an old volcano eruption there. And that's why you saw the heavy soils of gold and copper and molybdenum in such concentration, was because of an old volcano. Well, I got to talking to another geologist, and the other geologist said, no, that's not the case. What actually happened was that there was a fault up there, and the fault shifted. And when that fault shifted like that, that molten squeezed right in. And that's why there's so high concentrate on the east side of their find and not so much on the west side, was because of that shift that happened. And that's why it's so concentrated. And so that tells me that there's some seismic activity up there, different kinds of plates that where this mine is sitting on, that makes the conditions even worse. Now you put a mine, the seismic activity and the water, and that is no place for a mine. No place. There's no way in the world they can build that mine safely and not affect or contaminate other natural resources in the area.
I'm a fisherman overall, and I did work for Pebble Mine. We're concerned about it, and it's inevitable that an accidental spill or something would happen.
Some of the facts started coming in about, sulfide mines. They've always contaminated the water. They've always leached out toxic material, and then what happens to salmon when they're introduced to copper? They lose their sense of smell, and as soon as word like that got out, then everybody was at, no, we don't want this mine. We don't need this mine.
It's just too risky in the location, especially when copper is exposed to water and air. Then it creates a chemical that has an impact on the salmon. Copper will have the highest impact on the ability of the salmon to go back where they were born. It disorients them, and in some situation, the future salmon, if they spawn in the area, probably would not be able to spawn. With the future looking grim, if any of the contaminants or any of the toxins came down into the Malchatna, the Nushagak River, and it would flow into this lake here, the people in the region aren't going to change their opinion.
They call it pebble because pebble is small and it's deterring from how large that thing really can be.
Try to persuade Anglo that this was a bad investment, but their attitude to us was just like they just kind of brushed us off. In fact, the report that they gave to their board of directors at their annual meeting was this is a huge mine. It has it's going to be very profitable once we start mining it. There is some opposition, but it's very minute, and there's only a few misinformed people that live there that don't want this mine. And I was like, a few misinformed folks? Excuse me, there's 82% in our poll that are opposed to the mine.
Pebble Limited Partnership, they throw money in every direction they can, including giving money to universities, giving money to radio stations, giving money to villages, corporations, tribal councils, newspapers. They're just squeezing a check in anywhere they can get it, and it basically boils down to who's going to accept the money.
In mining, lead times are long, and companies need to be able to plan with confidence 20, 30, 50 years ahead. And the amounts involved are significant, with the investments requiring billions of dollars.
Many of the people don't want to get bought out. They don't want their money. Anglo-American made a promise, or Cynthia Carroll, the CEO, they wouldn't do the project if the communities didn't want it. The mining companies know what they want.
This is state land, designated for mineral exploration and development.
And Cynthia Carroll, after she made that promise, I feel she has broken it because they're pursuing to go into the permitted process.
Talking about a portage road.
Yeah, so one bridge crossing over Upper Tulare that then extends down to the north shore of Iliamna Lake, where we'll have a ferry terminal where we'll be able to load the concentrated minerals onto ice-breaking ferry, transport across the lake.
So it would be along Tulare.
We'll have one crossing there, but yeah, it will go kind of around to Upper Tulare.
Because Tulare is a spawning area, yeah, for salmon?
It just happens to have more potential sockeye productivity than the other two drainages. Also for us is how do we get sufficient energy brought in so that we can run our facilities. And in our case, we're looking at about a 180-mile natural gas pipeline.
So you are prepared to take risks with this particular environment?
Well, there's no such thing as a no-risk mine. You can mitigate those risks, and that's what we have to do.
But why even contemplate taking risks right here in such a unique environment?
This isn't a unique environment. This environment exists over a huge area, over the size of states.
Sure, but we're talking about a watershed which runs into the Bristol Bay, which is the world's greatest wild salmon run, period. It is unique.
Right. People think that we can destroy the whole fishery. We cannot do that. The amount of material that we're taking out, even if it all escaped, which is not possible to have all of it escape, would not destroy the fishery. It just wouldn't.
Why do you think that the overwhelming majority of people in this entire region are opposed to your mine plan?
They have fears, and those fears are legitimate, about what the mine might do.
Some of the important things that our kids learn from us when they're learning about subsistence are patience and teamwork and sharing.
Just hope it's here for the rest of my days and my kids' days. Trying to pass on the subsistence way of life. Keep it going.
The record, I think, is 3 in one shot. Dip net. And here's Round Island. Now you're going by Round Island. It's the largest haul out for walruses in the Northern Hemisphere, maybe in the world. You know, it's right here. And that would be lost too. And the halibut nursery that is in Bristol Bay, that would all be lost. The red salmon, of course. There's bird sanctuaries down on the Lower Peninsula. There's places here, I mean, this is God's country. It's just absolutely gorgeous. And I found myself just so, maybe I was just really fatigued too, but I found myself just so totally overwhelmed that I was just weeping as I was up in my flybridge. You know, the crew didn't see it, but I was just, I mean, they're just driving through all of this just pristine Alaska and thinking that people would take that kind of a shot at it, you know?
So our elders, our scientists tell us that, yeah, you get big mine up there and we're going to lose fish habitat, and eventually we're not going to have fish. And you'll hear the mining industry tell you, oh no, fish and mining can coexist.
We don't have to choose between fishing and mining. In Alaska, we can have both.
And all of the studies that we've seen and all of the presentations that we've heard, fishing and mining do not coexist. One loses, and it'll be fish that'll lose. And if it's fish that loses, then it's people in rural Alaska that lose.
When it comes to an environmental disaster at a mine, few top this.
10 million cubic meters of water in a tailing pond suddenly broke free, sending tons of mud, sand, and debris into a tiny creek, which became a torrent and flowed into Quesnel Lake.
The breach happened at the Mount Polley mine in central British Columbia. Wastewater and sediment poured into Polley Lake, then moved down Hazeltine Creek into Quesnel Lake. Now there are bigger concerns about the contamination moving through the Quesnel Caribou water system, all the way to the Fraser River.
We can't eat gold, but we can eat salmon. All 5 species, as well as the freshwater fish spinning. It's more important for the future generation. We had to learn very, very quickly in order to get to where we're at. And I do believe the partnership is having a hard time with that. And we're going to give them a lot worse time.
So we went on record, opposed it. We went and asked the city of Dillingham. The city of Dillingham opposed it. Our village corporation opposed it. And then we worked with our regional corporation and they finally opposed it.
We have to ask ourselves whether it's worth the risk. No, not no. Not just no, but hell no.
For us to be doing anything else but working in ways to stop Pebble Mine is like arranging deck chairs on the Titanic. Subsistence salmon is a major portion of our diet and we depend on it. It's our life force. It's our blood. That's a main artery here. This river is a main artery. It's a main source of life for us. And if it gets contaminated by Pebble Mine in any way, that's going to destroy the foundation of our lives, our clean watershed here.
So it's important for us to get our young people involved and educated on mining and what does that mean and how does it threaten our way of life. And that's part of my responsibility as the third chief of our tribe to make sure that we do it.
I've seen the worst mines in America. I've studied those and I have a feeling that's gonna happen here and I don't want that.
Hey.
Hi.
You guys could be in this film actually if you want to.
I'm fine, I'll listen.
I'll taste the words. Anyway, this is a work in progress. It's kind of a what if.
Sunrise on the water, sparkles on the bay. That wild elastic treasure has come back to Bristol Bay. But there's dark cloud moving in, lines are being drawn. If we can't stop these men, one day that treasure will be gone. father tells his story, there's a twinkle in his eye. The children gather round so they can hear, as he recalls the glory of the tundra and the tide.